Senator Blumenthal just confronted Secretary Noem with a brutal question. How can you allow mothers and babies to suffer in detention? This is about life, dignity, and basic humanity.
What they do every day and how important it is.
Thank you.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you. Secretary Noem, on May 5th, the Customs and Border Patrol, Border Protection, CBP, quietly rescinded, I'm not sure it's even been reported, their, quote, processing of pregnant and postpartum non-citizens and infants, end quote, policy, which was issued on January 28, 2022, citing it as, quote, obsolete or misaligned with current agency guidance and immigration enforcement policies. That January 28th policy memorandum followed years of inadequate care documented by a report from the Inspector General of the Department of Homeland Security showing that the treatment of pregnant, postpartum, and nursing women and infants was just horrendously and horrifically inadequate. And a recent site visit by Senate Judiciary Committee staff confirmed that this problem is continuing, that pregnant women being detained do not have access to adequate health care. Do you agree or disagree that babies and pregnant women within CBP and ICE custody should receive care that are tailored to their specific needs? And why, in God's name, would that policy be rescinded providing that care?
Well, Senator, I will look at the specifics of that policy and what was changed as of May 5th. I would say that everybody that's incarcerated or is brought into custody and is in a detention center is receiving appropriate care, and that we are making accommodations for individuals that have different physical situations or pregnancy.
Not happening.
And so I will look at the specific policies as to why one of the requirements may have been changed or adapted. If you have a specific to point out, that would be fantastic.
You don't know about this policy?
I do know about the policy change, but I've looked at the guidelines of how we handle individuals that are pregnancy.
You do know about the policy change. How could you allow it to happen?
Well, sir, what are you finding wrong with what we do with individuals who are pregnant that are in our detention centers? Is there concerns I should be addressing?
Women who are pregnant or who have just had a child and their infant babies are not receiving adequate medical care.
Everybody receives medical care.
Concerned?
Everybody receives medical care that is in our custody, and even if they are going to be returned, even if they're going to be returned back to their home country, we are making sure that they have medical care in their home country before they are sent there. So that is something that we do very diligently, is to make sure that anybody who has a medical issue, a concern, something that needs to be addressed is taken care of in those detention centers.
What you are telling me right now is factually untrue.
No, it's actually
more important, you permitted a policy to be rescinded that provides for adequate care because it was, quote, obsolete or misaligned with your agency's guidance and immigration enforcement priorities. How can you sit here and tell us that caring for pregnant women or infants or women postpartum is misaligned with your priorities?
Yeah,
everyone who's in
our care and in our detention centers receives medical care that is appropriate to them and their specific condition. Absolutely, that is happening.
You're about to lose a fifth of your workforce in FEMA, correct?
There are individuals in FEMA that are no longer working with us. They may have taken early retirement or deferred retirement.
How are you going to meet the needs of our constituents in Missouri or Connecticut, which suffered floods recently? I saw FEMA in action then, as I've seen them over the years. They are dedicated, vigorous public servants. They appear and spend hours and days and weeks caring for people. You're losing a fifth of them, including most of the leadership. What's your plan to replace
We've got
them?
many people in FEMA that do very good work every day taking care of people that are in a crisis situation, that are experiencing the worst day of their lives. The problem is that over the years and under the Biden administration, they failed the American people.
You're not answering my question, Madam
I absolutely
Secretary.
am.
How are you going to replace a workforce
You can't convince me that any federal government agency does a better job just because it has more people. More people does not equal a better job. Better job is accountability to people and making sure we're taking
or
care
anywhere
of
in the
them.
country if you don't have the dedicated public servants in FEMA and you're losing them.
Time has expired. Senator Kim.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Secretary, I saw the proposed budget, and it showed a decrease for FEMA.
This hearing wasn't just about bureaucracy. It was about humanity, and Senator Richard Blumenthal made that painfully clear. He looked Secretary Noem in the eye and asked the most basic question of all: how can you allow this to happen? On May 5th, Customs and Border Protection quietly rescinded a policy that ensured pregnant women, postpartum mothers, and infants in custody would receive care tailored to their needs. Think about that for a second. These are some of the most vulnerable human beings on Earth: expectant mothers, women who just gave birth, and babies. And the policy meant to protect them was simply labeled obsolete. Blumenthal wasn't having it. He cited reports from the Inspector General and site visits by Senate Judiciary staff that showed what so many already knew: women in custody are still not receiving adequate health care. Imagine the cruelty, being detained while pregnant or with a newborn and stripped of even the guarantee of proper medical attention. Secretary Noem tried to brush it off, insisting everyone gets care, insisting accommodations are made. But Blumenthal pressed harder. How can providing basic health care to mothers and babies possibly be misaligned with your priorities? That's not misaligned, that's inhumane. And this is bigger than a policy change. It speaks to how this country treats migrants and asylum seekers. Are they human beings deserving of dignity, or just numbers to be shuffled around in a system obsessed with enforcement over compassion? This is why Senator Blumenthal's challenge matters. Because behind every statistic is a mother struggling to protect her child, a newborn whose survival depends on proper medical attention, and a family whose dignity is already under assault. And let's be real, this is where Democrats need to draw the line. We can debate immigration policies all day, but care for pregnant women and babies should never be negotiable. If the Republican priority is to roll back even this most basic protection, then the moral stakes couldn't be clearer. This is why Democrat Arising exists, to spotlight the fights that show who we really are as a nation. If you believe mothers and babies deserve dignity and care, not neglect and cruelty, then subscribe and join us. Because together we can push back against policies that dehumanize and stand up for a politics rooted in compassion and accountability. This is why Democrat Arising exists, to spotlight the fights that show who we really are as a nation.